Hey, welcome to the latest edition of First Day Kopites podcast. Today, we're delighted to be joined by Wes Young, who is a mate of Ryan Matarese, who's a member of the OLSC Delaware board. Wes spent a little bit of time in Delaware, so that's his definite connection to us. And Sean and I are going to chat with him today about his support for the Reds, where that started, and kind of where he is now. We'll talk a little bit about yesterday's game because we're recording this the day after Liverpool struggled to beat Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park, only managing the 7 goals. We'll dissect that, and maybe we'll touch on some other stuff. And if we start talking about VAR, we'll end it there and we'll say goodnight. Maybe we'll talk about VAR. Just a couple of announcements before we get going. The OLSC Delaware has a couple of fundraisers running on the website, which is olscdelaware.org. One for a local nonprofit called Cool Shoes that does work in underprivileged communities, and we've got another one running for Food Bank of Delaware, and obviously food banks have been really stretched, so any donation that you can manage at this time would be really, really appreciated. And then, well, why don't we just get going? If you haven't subscribed already, subscribe. And if you've joined us because you saw us on USA Cop, then special welcome to you. Okay. So, Wes, let's start at the beginning. What's your
Okay.
earliest memory of following the Reds?
Well, the first game I remember watching would be the '86 Cup final against Everton. I remember sitting at home watching that. The iconic rush goal where he rounds a keeper and the ball hits the camera that's in the back of the net, smashes the camera. That would be my earliest memory of sitting watching Liverpool. I didn't go to a game until 1992. My uncles started to take me. So I was 8 at that point in 1986. So sort of that World Cup in Mexico in '86 and shortly before the FA Cup final, probably my earliest football memories of watching games on TV.
And why Liverpool? Because you're not from the city.
A couple of reasons, really. My dad was a footballer in the '80s, '70s, and '80s. He was in a couple of Scotland squads, and his hero was Kenny Dalglish. And growing up, that's he was a teammate, but he'd always talk of other footballers as teammates, but he would just hold Kenny Dalglish in this different regard. I have two uncles that are my mum's youngest brothers. They're only 5 and 7 years older than me, so they were kind of like older brothers to me. And they'd follow my dad wherever my dad was playing at the time, but then also for some reason they were Liverpool supporters, and it just sort of rubbed off on me. They started going to the games. In the '90s, you could get in and pay on the door. You didn't need tickets, so you take your risk. I got locked out a couple of times by not quite getting there early enough, and the ground was at capacity. But they started to take me when I was 12, 13, and it kind of stuck, But at the time that we were just coming out of the title in the title in 1990, and we were into the Souness era, became obsessed by Liverpool, and as we went into our poorest period, I guess you would say, poorest modern day period. So thankfully we stuck around, and 30 years later we're back on our perch.
Yeah. So it is hard to remember actually that the '90s, in the '80s and the '90s, that the ground was not always full. I think it was probably in '92 when we had a European night against Auxerre where we came back from 2-0 down.
Yeah.
And there may only been 20,000 people in the ground on that particular night.
I think it was about that. I think my game was they wanted to get, it was a League Cup third round replay against Sheffield United. I think there was 20,000 there.
Yeah.
I remember walking up steps of the Kop, which at 12 and 13-year-old, you're running up the top of them thinking, are they ever going to end? And then you see this vast stand. And going in there, you'd never really, it felt it felt full at 12 years old, standing in the Kop. But then when you reflect back and you go, it's half full.
Yeah.
The ground was half full. So, and then moving on from that, as we got the friends that we share season tickets with, the whole reason that I sort of joined their group of friends is that they live down in London, and Stoke on a Tuesday night wasn't an appealing drive, and we were a good outlet to be able to send the season tickets up to and use the tickets. So we've spent the last 20-25 years sharing tickets, season tickets, and now the demand is very different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know how many years the waiting list is, but it's some ridiculous number.
My brother's still on it. I think I moved house, and they did a few years ago. I think they wanted to freshen it up, and you had to renew.
Yeah.
And I think I missed that, but my brother is something like 1,100 on the list,
Okay.
and that's got to be 20 something years he's been on it.
Wow.
Wow.
So yeah, he's 40 now, and I think we were 18 or 19 when we first applied. So I think we're waiting for the main stand, the Anfield Road end.
Yeah.
To be built before we see anything.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, I did see Billy Hogan speak actually quite recently, and he talked about that being kind of something that he wanted to see as his legacy as the kind of the CEO of Liverpool, which. I guess you see the plans, but to understand that it was a big priority for him kind of makes a big difference in how I think about the sort of the emphasis on that project.
It needs it. The Anfield Road end is not a great place to watch football from, especially the lower tier. If you're at the back of the lower tier, it's one of the. I do a lot of away games. I've been to a lot of the grounds around the country, and if you had to rank it, but I don't have to go and watch a game at the back of the away section where all our rivals have to stand. So
yeah.
It could really do with rebuilding, because they've done such a great job with the main stand. It's an incredible. The owners have done an incredible job. Even the areas outside the Kop end, sort of the fan area and the new club store, club shop. The facilities are phenomenal. The new main stand we have one of our season tickets is in the upper tier of the main stand, and it's something else. So having sat in the old wooden main stand, it certainly needed doing, but they've done such a great job on it that it makes sense that they could finish it off. Allow the club then to host music concerts and I don't know, maybe NFL games in the future, but just generate another revenue that gets back into the club.
Yeah.
So and get me another season ticket.
So listeners to this pod will know that I usually hang out in the Kenny Dalglish stand.
Okay.
I think at some point that will need a refresh, because the whole I read somewhere actually that one of the issues they were having when planning kind of games during COVID was that the hallways were so narrow in that stand that they would have real issues kind of getting people safely in and out.
Our we have three together that are in the lower right on the line on the goal line, level with the goal line at the Kop end of the lower Kenny.
Yep.
And but our seats have the exit right, so there's nobody sitting behind you in the end of road. So they're great to be able to shoot out and grab a beer right on the whistle, or dive to the toilet right on the whistle.
Yeah.
But yeah, once if you're too late getting there, it's a real scramble. It is fairly tight. So I think you're right. I think it's a much better solution. I never wanted to move, so I'm glad that we didn't break ground in the park. I'm glad that the first American owners didn't get their way, because Anfield is a special place, and with the main stand, the owners have shown that you can develop Anfield without it having too much of an impact on supporters going to the game.
Yeah, yeah. I know one of the things that's prevented them from doing was going for a name sponsorship. But I saw this wonderful suggestion. Actually, someone did research on how many companies out in the world were called Fortress, and they kind of went and sort of said, "Why don't you approach these people to sponsor us and become Fortress Anfield?"
Yeah,
wonderful idea. So we'll go back to the team, but your connection to Delaware. Tell us a little bit about what brought you here and how you watched the games when you were here.
Yeah, so we have a family business that we've had over here. My parents started a business in the 80s. I've worked from leaving school, and we're in this spray booth industry for painting cars in, and we had opportunity to expand out to North America. And in our small family business naivety, a business joining, incorporating in Delaware has some tax breaks, as you'll know more than me about. We thought we had to actually be in Delaware, which turns out that we didn't have to do that, but we decided that's where the office would be. And my stepdad sent me away saying, do you fancy running the business in America we're going to start? And I said, well, better than Rochdale, where I was living at the time when I grew up. So head out in the summer of 2003 for a couple of weeks, found a factory and small office down in Newark. Newark. Newark, yes. And an apartment there, and then went back, waited for my visa, headed out September 2003. So on my own, moved to about 100 meters out of Trolley Square after about a month, and then headed down, trying to bump into people and find people down at Trolley Square. I was told that was the area to go and get a beer.
Yep.
And started drinking in Rooney's and Logan House, and then just made a network of friends from there. That's where I bumped into Ryan Matarese. So actually, a good story for you guys then is he probably wouldn't admit to this, but when I first met him, he was wearing a Man United shirt.
Oh. He's going to be
I
unhappy.
think that some of the link had just opened, the Link Financial Field. I think they'd had some exhibition games there, and United and Celtic had played, and Barcelona maybe. So he'd been to those games and just bought the shirts at the ground. I bumped into a guy from Scotland, a big Rangers fan, in Scratch Magoo's in Trolley Square. And through a friend of a friend, he knew Ryan. So just introduced me while we were having a drink one night, and got chatting with Ryan. He wasn't wearing the United shirt at that time, and he said, would you come and coach? I coach a girls team, under 10, under 12 girls team. Would you come and help with the coaching? I'm like, I will do, but not until you take that shirt off. So not until you burn that Man United shirt. So I'm sure he won't thank me for telling you that, but that's sort of, I think how he came to support Liverpool was I was trying to find somewhere you could watch the game.
Yeah.
So I did 2 years in Delaware before we moved the operation over to California, from the business perspective. And I decided that I didn't want to uproot and start again. I got a really good basis of friends. Delaware holds a special place in my heart. I really had a great couple of years there in Wilmington. So at that point, I decided we'd move back to the UK and let the management team run the business over in California. So it was a short period, just short of 2 years, but a very fun time. But you couldn't get games in America on TV like I guess you can now.
Yeah. Was it on Fox back then?
Yeah, I think you could only get it on Fox. I think I remember not being able to get it on normal TV, and then going down to the bars and then saying we don't put soccer on TV here. And so there was an Arsenal game it'll be October, November 2003, I think. And I was the only one sat at the back of Catherine Rooney's with it on TV. And I see the pictures now, how you guys, now you've got an official supporters club and dozens and dozens and dozens of people watching. I think that's brilliant. I just wish it was there in 2003. So if I needed to get a game, really, it was the dark horse in Philly, or then I became good friends and members of the New York Sports Club. So would the guy I mentioned before from the Rangers fan, he moved from Delaware up to Manhattan, so you shoot up there and watch the game in the 11th Street bar with the New York Sports Club. That was probably the biggest in America at the time. But it's a fair trek from Delaware to have to get up to Philly, for early starts. So it would have been great if you guys were around in 2003, but I look forward to getting out and watching a game with you guys at some point, hopefully next year, really.
Which would be absolutely awesome. Yeah. So pre-COVID, I think we were regularly getting like 60, 70 people from.
Really, that's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, it's been hard to keep people kind of connected in the
Yeah.
interim. We tried to do a few things, but
Are the
yeah.
bars open
Uh,
now?
well, so we were able to. It's gone through stages. We were able to watch the games because Rooney's closed the street. Well, somebody closed the street for them. So we did have a small group, probably like 20, 25 people max, watching the game outside. But obviously, because the weather now, that's
Yeah.
not an option, and there's more restrictions in place as well. Probably last 3 weeks.
Mhm.
Bars can only hold 25% of people, and frankly, I would say if I did a straw poll, then most people would be like, I don't feel comfortable even going, even if it is
Yeah.
25%. So
Yeah.
yeah, we've been trying. It's probably if you're in Delaware, then Catherine and Louise are now doing a delivery service, which we took advantage of last week. That's probably worth a shout out because it would be fantastic if we were able to. They were able to kind of thrive through this. Um, so
Yeah, no, I miss it. I'm moving out to Delaware on my own and working on my own all during the day. My evenings were spent flip flopping across the road from the Logan House to Rooney's and back again. And generally would have a Liverpool top on, so um, everybody kind of knew that they knew who Liverpool were just because I'd either come back from the dark horse and drinking at 7 a.m, watching the lunchtime game, and spending the rest of the day telling everybody about the game. So they became, if they didn't know about soccer at that point, they certainly did by the time I'd left. So
yeah,
and Ryan Ryan's become just as an avid a fan as me now. So I think it's great. I mean, having spent time with the New York Sports Club and people like Ryan and seeing guys like yourselves, it's easy to say that you're not from we can't get tickets at the moment because I don't have an L postcode. I don't live in the city of Liverpool. So, but out of towners and foreign supporters sometimes get a bit of stick. But the effort that goes into supporting a team when you live in different time zones is something else. So,
yeah.
I was delighted to see Delaware get its own official title.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I guess we do have a few 7:30 a.m. kickoffs, but
Yeah,
we could be on the West Coast, we could be in Australia.
yeah,
Some of those people
yeah,
get up at crazy times.
Mhm.
Like a few of them were posting about the game yesterday, like at 4:30 in the morning. I saw about it. It wasn't light by the time the game ended.
yeah, yeah.
So good stuff. So let's that's great. It's great. It's always wonderful to find people who might have heard of Delaware before the presidential election.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
Good stuff. I had a question down which was about kind of what was your favorite era. I am going to make an assumption that it's like now. Um,
I think it has to be really because the substance isn't. We're now winning trophies as well as playing football that's good to watch. So my era of going watching started with Souness, and the football was terrible. Um, but most of the time, I think that was down to the fact the results weren't great as well. It didn't help. Um, we won a lot of trophies with Benitez, but the football wasn't a great type of football to watch for me. I think the nearest the Houllier era was good for me because I was in my late teens, early 20s. So traveling watching Liverpool was great then. We had some success, especially 2001. That would probably be my favourite, but Klopp gets Liverpool. Um, it just everything about him and the way the team plays at the moment is exactly what is exactly what I'm looking for a football team. I just this is a special team we're watching at the moment. So we've got a little bump in the road here with COVID and not being able to go, but I'm hoping that Klopp's got a good few more years left with Liverpool, and there's a lot more trophies left in this team.
Mhm.
It's pretty good. It's a pretty good experience going to the game these days when you could go.
right. So what are you watching? Actually, post COVID, where are you watching?
Well, at the moment it's at home. Yeah, I have a 2.5-year-old daughter and a 7-month-old daughter. So if I'm not at the game, I should have. family duties. So I do say to the wife, I need 2 hours a week, twice a week, just of me time, please.
Yeah.
And then yesterday she was having her hair done and her nails done before they lock it all down, and I ended up with my 7-month-old making her cry when the second goal went in, because we're so delighted that we were going to try and box the game off and not give away a lead. But it was a little bit too loud for my celebration. But this phase of my life is, if I'm not at the game, well, you can't go to the pub at the moment in Lancashire where I live, so they're all closed in tier 3. So, so yeah, just at home, unfortunately.
Yeah. I can totally relate. One of the things that my kids and my wife love about me being able to watch the games at Rooney's is that I'm not home shouting at the TV. So, and of course, the 7:30 kickoff. Most of them went up yesterday when we scored.
Yeah. I don't make it to Rooney's as much as I would have liked the last few years, and it's exactly for that reason. My kids are now 3 and 6, so
Okay.
I'm hoping when everything's back open, I can make it more often. But these last 5-6 years, it's been tough. My wife works weekends a lot too, so you gotta take care of your kids first, obviously.
It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how the conversation pans out when we can go back to games. And I'm telling the wife I'm off to the game, and but for me, off to the game means you won't see me until the early hours of the morning. So it's not a case of driving over and being back by 5:30, 6 o'clock. So it's for me, it's a day out with friends, and but obviously we've not been able to go for almost a year now, I guess, and my responsibilities have changed. So 2 little ones, but it's just a phase. So we'll see.
Yeah.
A couple of thoughts. You can give 2 hours back this coming week, right? You don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
I've scared my kids a number of times on celebrating goals. I remember my oldest one was probably 6 months old, and I scared the living crap out of her one time when the goal was scored. It was years, I don't know which goal it was now, but the Fabinho goal against Man City last year, where I was watching in the basement here with them, and I scared the crap out of both. I just jumped out of my seat and screamed, and they're like, ah. So that's fine. There've been at least.
I made my daughter cry for the first time. She would have been about 11 days old when Mane equalised against Real Madrid in the Champions League final. I couldn't go out. So it was celebrated it, and then she hadn't really cried until that point. So she was very quiet. I'm like, oh, yeah, this is a different type of experience now. It won't be long, but it'll soon pass. They'll be doing away days with me, no doubt, asking me to go and get them a drink. So the time will fly by, and hopefully they'll be asking for, "Can I have your ticket, Dad?"
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm already onto those requests. My kids are. Actually, they were arguing over. I've got a few old shirts, and they were having a debate about who was going to get the shirt. It's like, So what was the last game you went to then?
I probably couldn't. I couldn't tell you. I do know this time last year I was in the sunshine in Doha. So, but I definitely, I missed the last 2 Champions League finals just because both my daughters were born in May, with a young family. I didn't think I'd get a ticket last year, and I ended up getting a ticket a week before the game, but I'd already committed to not going with the wife, stupidly. But we have a group of friends. We were short on tickets anyway. They were in such demand. So I had a friend that was without, but had flights already. So we just passed that ticket on. Won't make that mistake again. And obviously I missed the first one because the baby was born literally 2 weeks before. So when the opportunity came to go to, when some of the lads said they were heading down to I didn't really want to go. It didn't appeal to me going to Qatar, but it was actually a brilliant experience. The games weren't great, but Qatar was just a different, just somewhere I'd not been. I've never been to the Middle East. I'm so pleased that I went, so I could highly recommend it. I think the World Cup will be a huge success, and I wouldn't have said that before I went.
Wow.
These World Club Championships were a tester event, I guess, really to see.
Yeah.
You have to deal with a lot more people for a World Cup, but the infrastructure is superb there, and obviously the outcome was great for us. So.
Right. The Anfield Rap did a show actually, and they were surprisingly positive about the people who'd gone were kind of talking about their experience.
Yeah.
In that there were places to get drinks. The fan parks seemed kind of relatively well organized.
I mean, it was incredibly expensive, but you put that aside. It's expensive for a beer. It's £10 a pint. But the fan park was excellent. They did a great job of that. And there isn't a great deal to do, but you sort of going to watch a bit of football and to, it's not somewhere I go and try and spend 2 or 3 weeks, but I think we were there for 5 nights. It was 4 nights and 5 days. It was pretty good, yeah. And you can get a beer. The politics aside of the Middle East and how they treat the working staff and the health and safety around construction, etc., isn't to be overlooked. But we were treated very well, and the roads, everywhere's impeccably clean. But there's the food's good. There's plenty of places to eat, and there are places to drink. You just have to be respectful of their culture. So, how England go on when England supporters travel over there might be a different thing. But every Liverpool fan I bumped into while we were over there, and everybody we were talking to, had the same opinion. They were pleasantly surprised and found it a really accommodating place to go. So,
were there a lot of Liverpool fans there?
Yeah, there's a lot of Liverpool fans from around the world there. It's quite an easy place to get to, I guess. It's a bit of a hub, transport-wise. There's a lot of flights going because the airport is huge. But there was a lot of supporters from Asia had travelled over. A lot of African supporters there. There was probably only a couple of thousand travelled over. Right before Christmas.
Yeah,
probably isn't the best time to try, and it isn't a cheap trip to do. So, it was maybe nice that it wasn't flooded. 32 teams are however many they've got in this next World Cup. Traveling over with tens of thousands might be different. Yeah. The Brazilian supporters though were brilliant. Flamenco we played.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And actually the Mexican team we played, they didn't have so many supporters there, but that was just a great experience. Just in the bar at night, on the day there wasn't a game, everybody singing. You got a Mexican song and then a Liverpool song and then a flamenco song, and everybody just going back and forth, and the drums came out. It was just a really good experience. I don't think they quite seen anything like it. Liverpool and flamenco supporters going toe to toe with singing, and banging plates and drums and chanting. I don't quite think they were used to that sort of rowdiness, but it was really good. It was really good. I must have done a few games in January or February before everything started to get locked down, but I can't remember the last game.
Yeah. Well, I think they sort of
Wolves away, possibly.
Oh, okay, that was a tough one.
Yeah, first time at Molineux, which was good atmosphere, really good atmosphere, and a late winner. Bobby, I think.
Bobby Firmino, indeed.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of felt like that victory over Leicester was kind of the sort of the point at which you're like, oh, this is probably going to happen now.
Yeah. You could feel that. I was pretty confident early on, just that we just seemed relentless. It's just a machine.
Yeah.
So consistent. And I think that's what will hold us in good stead this season, is our consistency above and over other teams.
Yes. Well, let's before we move on, I just want to go back to what you mentioned. Gerard Houllier. Obviously, he passed away last week. A couple of connections. One is I actually saw the Michael Owen final in the Dark Horse in Philadelphia. So that was quite a nice experience. But you said that was a little more kind of Liverpool playing like Liverpool, like you'd want them to play. Any other sort of thoughts about that era with him and kind of what potentially he achieved? Because I think I think our sense is that he kind of left with a bit of a cloud, but his reputation kind of got rehabilitated over time, and that's a lot of what you heard this week.
Yeah, he had a terribly difficult job because he was coming off the back of sort of the Souness and then Evans era, where the club, I'd say the club in that era I'd say Arsenal are at a similar point. It just needs everything going back to the beginning and starting again. Really, with Arsenal, they're in a terrible shape, and Liverpool had gotten in that. They were in that way. They reached the end of their cycle, and it needed restarting. But Liverpool was so stubborn as a club in that the boot room had worked for them. Appointing Evans made sense, as that's what they'd done with previous managers, and it just they'd signed the wrong players as soon as they got into signing too many non-Liverpool players. I think in the games I was starting to go to in 92, 93, you got players like, we've got really good players coming to the end of their careers. So your Rushes and your Barnes and your Mulveys and your Nichols, and you were bringing in players. You got Julian Dix and Neil Ruddock and just not Liverpool players, and Houllier came in and at a similar time to Wenger coming in for Arsenal and sort of he brought a new way of coaching and a new way of management into the game. And I was in my early 20s. That 2001 season was something else. My first European away. We did the final in Dortmund against Alaves, but those cup finals. And obviously winning the Super Cup as well out in Monaco. It was just a great year. So we were just short, weren't we? We were just short of being able to have that push. Unfortunately, we were coming up against, United at their peak cycle. United almost like I guess we are now. They were so strong that it was very hard to there was no margin for error, and we ran them close a couple of times, but. And I think in the end, his health issues didn't maybe had an impact on where he was going. And but I'll hold those memories firmly. He'll be sadly missed, Gerard. And you could see this week that nobody had a bad word to say about him. Yeah. So, and there were so many tributes to him. He was obviously, first and foremost, he was obviously just a wonderful person. So I never had the opportunity to meet him, but everybody was very quick to tell stories and about how they sort of benefited from him, all past players and other coaches. And it's unusual that he's not upset anybody, maybe other than Roy Evans. Roy Evans might feel.
And even Evans, I think, was upset, certainly at the time.
Yeah.
Has subsequently kind of come back and said it was not Gerard Houllier that I was upset.
No, professionally, he might feel aggrieved, but personally, I think Evans and Houllier would have got on really well. So it'd be 73 is no age. It's very sad, but those were good times. They were tempered by unfortunately United were winning everything domestically, sort of title wise, and they were just so hard to compete against. But it was essentially 3/4 of Houlier's team that won the Champions League in 2005. Benitez has said that he inherited a very strong team. So it was Benitez's team on paper, and he had an awful lot to do with it. But Houllier had moulded that squad at that point.
We're going to move on, and we're not going to mention Igor Bishkan in our conversation.
Or Jimmy Traore.
Oh. Yeah.
Actually, that's a Delaware memory. It wasn't in a bar; it was in a friend's house in Delaware. But that own goal against Burnley was watched in Delaware. I remember that. Been printed on my brain, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but he has a Champions League winners medal.
He does. It's funny actually, because I remember Benitez getting a lot of grief for playing a weakened team in the FA Cup, and we're at the point now where I'm pretty sure, I don't know about you, but I'm like. Played the under-18s against Villa in the FA Cup. Like, let's clear our schedule. More important things to focus on.
I didn't understand the team selection. It's hard to criticise Klopp given his record. I didn't understand the team selection for the dead rubber in against Midtjylland, however you pronounce it.
Midtjylland, yeah.
Where Jota got injured. But
yeah. So based on that, we've had a few conversations about this, so happy to kind of share some thoughts. But I think what we concluded, and Sean, you can correct me where I got this wrong, was that Sean didn't agree with the team selection either, by the way. But I think we concluded that there was more than a hint of he didn't want the young players to be embarrassed, so he
Yeah.
needed to have some first team players in the team, and I suspect that's probably what he'll end up with in the FA Cup match. You know, they are allowed 5 subs in the FA Cup, so I could easily see how he'll pick. You know, I don't know whether Mane and Salah would be so keen on goals scored in the FA Cup, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of them played.
It'd been interesting because of who we're playing. Having been embarrassed by Villa earlier in the season, I kind of think Villa will go strong. I would expect.
Mm-hmm.
That, you know, they're much more secure in the league, I think, this season. I'm not sure how they're going on right now, but I don't think they'll be in a relegation battle this year like they were last year, and I think they'll want a good cup run. And as you say, if it was Villa, I think we got humped 5-0 in the cup by them last year. I was in the airport at Heathrow flying out to Qatar when they played pretty much the under-18s, like only under-23s.
Yep, you did.
And it's not a good experience. That you know, it's great. Like the Everton game, which was an under-23s team,
Mm-hmm.
essentially was a phenomenal performance. But on the whole, if you're going to play a young team, chances are that they're going to get beat, and that's not always a good thing. So I can see him picking a strong team for that reason.
Yeah. I saw mixed feelings a little bit about it too, but it was also, the point was made to me that it is still the Champions League, and players
Sure.
like Salah still want to score goals in the Champions League, and you know, a lot of players never have the chance to play in a Champions League game. So like Jota and Tsimikas, you know, so that, I mean, and a lot of that does make sense. But yeah, at the time I was like, it's just because of the injury crisis we were in. It's just like, you know, wrap everybody up and keep them safe. You know, we just need to get another weekend. So
I was moaning yesterday morning when Salah
that's where
came off the bench. I'm like, do we really need Salah to come on now? Do we really need him?
And then he scored 2.
What do I know? What do I know?
So I replied to somebody's Facebook post on, I think it was on the USA Cup, like, why are they bringing Salah on? And my one word answer was goals. I mean, you saw how irritated Mane was going off, right? It's like,
Salah and Mane, if you want to keep them happy and keep them at the club, you just got to play them.
Yeah.
You know, there's a risk to be taken, but you can see Salah earlier in the season wasn't happy at getting brought off.
Yeah.
You know, these guys just want to play and want to score, and generally that's what they do. They score a lot of goals. So, you know, we got to have a bit more luck with injuries.
So let's talk a little bit about the game yesterday. Obviously 7-0 looks like it was never a contest, but I do think it was a contest for, I don't know, 35 minutes. I mean, a few things I would observe is that before that game, the front three hadn't scored a lot of goals from open play in the last couple of months. Clearly, 5 between them yesterday kind of changes that statistic quite markedly. But I thought it was noticeable that, and the score probably had something to do with it, the Palace, who are one of the teams who hasn't been playing 2 games a week like we have, really done for at the end of that game. It looked like
I think we're an incredibly fit team. I think that will stand well for us over this Christmas period, because I think now the teams that haven't been in Europe, as you say, are now coming into 2 games a week. I think Sheffield United had injuries early today. I think Wilder would probably wish for 5 substitutes today. I think they're going to realise the importance of having, players fit and working. But I think you're right. So I think the games against Newcastle, West Brom over Christmas, I think we might benefit from having that stamina. What I loved about yesterday's game was just that it kind of showed the Fulham game was a blip. It was just an awful performance. Spurs, we came out the traps really quickly. But the nice thing about the Palace game is that we came out, right from the start, got ourselves an early goal, and they were in the game, Palace. And I could see, we was like, formation needs to change a bit here. I thought their 4-4-2 was giving them options, especially they were attacking Trent and that right side. They were getting a lot of joy down that way. But then the second goal went in, and from that point we just took them by the neck, and just we were a machine.
Mm-hmm.
So it was hard to figure. I think somebody said to me that there were 7 different assists, 7 different players for the 7 goals. You know, 5 different scorers. So the whole across the whole team, it was just an exceptional performance. And that just sends a message to the league that we might have key players injured, but you're going to have to really bring your A game if you're going to take points off us. Or I think really it's Liverpool not being if we're not at the top of our game, that's what will stop us getting points. It's sort of our destiny's in our own hands, really. We've got that. You know, Klopp has that, you know, the whole mentality monster saying that he really has it drilled in.
Yeah.
But it was nice to put a team to the sword and go on and get 5, 6, 7 goals yesterday. Can you imagine being Palace and looking up and seeing one player go off and Mo Salah stood there waiting to come out?
Maybe it was a Palace fan posting about why did he bring Salah on. I don't know. It's just
Yeah, I had him as captain in my fantasy football league team. I forgot to make the change when the tip came out, because we think there looks to be a bit of a leak in the team. There was news coming up Friday night that Salah was going to be rested.
Yeah,
I forgot to change my team, and I'm like, I'm going to end up with him playing 5 minutes and getting 1 point. He ends up with 2 goals and assists, so worked out well in the end.
And that pass was really, really beautiful. The one,
yeah,
you know,
Yeah,
it was just
yeah.
wow.
So
Hey,
tricky
Sean,
place, and it's interesting because Palace have a great away following. It's a noisy ground to go to, and obviously they would, if the game was a week before, they would have had 2,000 people in the ground, and
Yeah.
I don't really think it's fair that 4 teams get to have supporters and 16 don't. But you know, we're getting, that's something we are getting an advantage on at the moment, along with Everton and Southampton and Brighton. But you know, not having their fans in doesn't make it as daunting a place to go to. Our record, half time at 3-0, I'm like, we can't let this go. And like, shouldn't really say that 3-0 up against Palace. So, but our record hasn't been brilliant there. But that was just a clinical performance yesterday.
I know you
Yeah.
say that, but you know we've won on our last 4 visits there.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. It feels like, and maybe that 3-3 back in the Rodgers era is what makes me think it's. My first away day was at Palace.
Okay.
Molby scored that day. I think it was 6-1, opening day of the season. That must be 94, maybe.
I think the reference.
So we won 6-1 there. So maybe it's a myth. Maybe our form is a myth at Palace.
Well, I think the narrative, and Sean, I'm keen to hear from you about what you thought about yesterday's game, but I think there is a narrative that some of these commentators get on, and the one about Palace is, 3-3, they were pegged back.
Yeah.
And they constantly bring this story, and it's now 6 years. It'll be 7 years by the time we finish this season.
I was going to say, I think that Palace being a bogeyman team was mostly under Rodgers. It hasn't been so much under Klopp, right? I mean,
yeah.
But I don't know.
They're a good team right now, though. I mean, I've watched them a few times recently, and when Zaha's playing for them, he's a real threat. Eze looks a promising player. They're good on the break, and that's how teams can play against us, is counter-attacking, because you're not going to have a lot of possession against Liverpool. You know, and they were a threat. Van Arnold on his days is a good fullback, and you know, he overlaps well. So they were a threat for a while. You know, Roy Hodgson isn't my favourite Liverpool manager by a long stretch. But he's got a well-drilled.
Worst Liverpool manager, actually. I don't know.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
That was my least favourite era, I guess I would say. But he has a well-drilled team at Palace. You know, they'll sit around mid-table, and at home, if they had, I would imagine their home record is pretty good. So they don't seem to fare so well without Zaha. But it was a fixture I was looking at that. You know, if we hadn't dropped points against Fulham, I wouldn't have been so upset with an away point there. And then during the week, they lost the ability to have 2,000 fans, and I thought that could make a bit of a difference here. And you know, we've dropped points against Fulham. We really need to crack on here and get 3 points. But it's a good 3 points that against a solid team. So,
Sean, what did you love about yesterday?
There were just what's there not to love about yesterday? There's so many great goals. I mean, I was having a hard time, you know, going between them. I watched the match back again last night, And there were a few things that I noticed that I didn't notice as much during the game. But yeah, I mean, just every single one of those goals, there was just something fantastic about it, either the
Yeah.
finish or the finish and the pass to set it up. I've never watched a match where there were that many goals that were just awesome goals to watch. Um, and finishing was just, ruthless. I do think we were fortunate early on that Palace didn't take a couple of those chances, because there were one or two of those breaks that they definitely could have scored on, and it would have potentially changed the game. But
Alisson wasn't particularly stretched with any chance, though, was he? It
no,
wasn't as if Alisson kept us in the game, but
no,
more from misplaced passes, I guess. They had a couple of opportunities where the last pass was poor.
There was the one break with there were two that I'm thinking, and I think there was another one, but there was one where Zaha came down the right and he cut it back for Ayew, and he just misplaced the pass. And if the pass had been on, that probably would have been a goal, and there wouldn't have been anything else it could have done about it. It was just behind them. And then the other one was when Alisson came out quickly to clear the ball, and had to scramble back. And as it turned out, the guy tried to chip him, but Alisson got back quick enough, and it wasn't really even close. But I think there was another chance there too. But they did have some chances early on, but our finishing was just great. And it was great to see Taki get a goal early on, and that was a really good finish. Mane's finish was great. And then the Robbo cross for the Firmino's first goal was amazing.
Yeah.
And then I thought when we scored that fourth goal, Henderson's goal, I thought the pass from Naby was awesome. And if I went back, one of the things that I really did notice, I thought Naby had a good game yesterday. Watching it back a second time, he had a very good game. There's a lot you notice that he did in that game when you watch it a second time that is not necessarily obvious the first time. He broke up a lot of their counters. He was just in the middle of a lot of plays that I didn't notice the first time watching anyway. And on that particular goal, he actually started the move, and then he made the pass to Trent to lay it off for Henderson, and Henderson scored. And I thought at that point they were just broken. I mean, Palace just was done after that goal, and then we bring Mo Salah on, and he creates three more.
Sticks that one in the postage stamp corner of the goal. Just stop it, Mo. Come on.
Yeah, and another clean sheet. I was happy we got the clean sheet. It's just everything kind of went our way. It was like the reverse of Villa, it seemed like everything in Villa. Our performance wasn't great against Villa, but it wasn't as bad as the scoreline showed.
No.
I don't think it was an inaccurate scoreline yesterday, but I think Palace, probably could have scored a couple. And we didn't have any deflected goals or anything like that, but it was just sort of like our finishing was on. Everything was on. And
really nice to get good performances out of Taki and Naby.
Yeah.
And I picked up the newspapers today to see whether anybody's picked up any twinges, but nice for Joe Matip to come through a game. Hopefully, that's what these guys, especially Naby, he needs games. He needs a bit of luck, doesn't he? So because he's a great player on his day. And
I saw that was the first time he's played 90 for us in like a year, over a year.
Yeah,
which was surprising. But I mean, surprising and not surprising. But so that was important. And again, watching it back a second time, Matip was actually a lot better than I thought the first time watching it around. He made a number of pretty key plays early on. I think I thought the first, 20 minutes or so, we weren't playing great. We were a little erratic. Naby, it took a little bit for Naby to get into the game. Of course, I mentioned Henderson was hitting all these long balls in the first half, and as soon as I mentioned it, he scored the goal.
Negatively.
So I was like, why does he keep doing that? He's been doing that ever since we scored, and it's probably something he's being told to do. But it's hard to complain about anything with this team. That's kind of what I left thinking was, we're just really, really lucky to have this team right now. And I saw today somebody wrote about it being like an era-defining win, which may be too much to say, but 7-0 with all these injuries, it does say a lot about the team.
I think everybody's been waiting for it. They expected as we get at this period for Liverpool to fall to bits because they've got a weaker squad, and it sends a message out.
Mm-hmm.
We're missing Van Dijk, we're missing Thiago, we're missing Gomez, amongst many, Jota, Milner. But we stuck a team out there, and we beat a good team away from home 7-0, and
yeah,
other teams must be going, no.
It's totally shifted the narrative on NBC actually, because before they're really lazy sometimes about the stuff they talk about, and
sometimes
Liverpool have been Liverpool have been in crisis, and today, like every game they've had, like, well, Liverpool are they're in a league of their own. Everyone else is like just fighting amongst themselves. It's like, okay, interesting, just a 1-7-0 win for us apparently to be invincible, but.
Yeah, I think teams were just desperate to be able to get a bit of a march on Liverpool before January. You would expect Liverpool to bring in a defender in January, a centre half. We don't know. I don't know if they will or not, but that's the soonest that we'll have an opportunity to reinforce the numbers. So until then, I think teams were just hoping to be able to get a bit of a lead on Liverpool, and we've seen other teams now falling away the last couple of weeks, and we're going into Christmas Day with a 4-point lead, I think. So we've not got long until we can get reinforcements, and if we need them, or hopefully to start to see some players come back. So
that 4-point lead's happened very quickly, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Kind of hope that, and maybe we'll just do one last round, and we'll kind of think about the period ahead, where we've got these games, 3 games in a what is not that short a period of time, because we're going to play Sunday, Wednesday, Monday, Monday, Thursday, something like that. I should know these things, but I mean they're nicely spaced. We've got players coming back. Leicester play Man United, second and third.
Yeah,
it's a second and third teams keep playing, and then the third team gets beaten, drops out of the race or something next weekend. So. Feels like there's a real opportunity here before we reach halfway to kind of establish ourselves in a really strong position.
Yeah, the Tottenham win obviously took 3 points off Spurs and gave it, it was a big jump for us to be able to turn that round. But I think it was a big statement win against Spurs. But just to keep the mentality, to keep that machine running, and to show that Fulham was a blip more than it was just a bad performance, and teams now, they won't think that Liverpool have a weakness. They won't think, oh, they've got injuries, let's go at them today. I think teams will be reserved to not getting humiliated again. I'd be disappointed if we don't pick up maximum points now over the Christmas period. We're in that schedule. We're used to playing twice a week because we've had the Champions League. West Brom are struggling. Newcastle have had problems, I think, with COVID through their squad. It's going to be more difficult for them to get their fitness levels up, and they might be focusing their time and attention on games where they've got a better chance of picking up points. Seems daft to say that a team would just give the game up against Liverpool, but if you're going to have to rotate and rest players over this period, do you put your strongest team out against Liverpool and still lose? And then I don't know who Newcastle have got or West Brom have got in their other games, but they need to pick up some points. I think it could be damage limitation.
I think particularly for Steve Bruce, that would be a very kind of thing to do, wouldn't it? Recognise that the chance of points of Liverpool is low. He's not got a crowd to worry about.
No, they're never going to admit to it really, but there is some sense in it. If they've got fatigue in their squad and they've got depleted numbers, that I should probably find out who they're playing, but they're
it might be different for West Brom, and
different with the new manager Barrett's with Allardyce.
Well, I don't know if there's a bounce, but there's a new manager who has a certain style of playing, right? Although that game's was going on while we're doing this.
I was just looking. They got humped today. So
what was the score?
3-0.
They had someone sent off as well, I think. So
okay.
Yeah. So
against Villa.
Yeah. To be expected. So Sean, what are you anticipating over the holiday period? Obviously, we'll come back next week and do an episode after the West Brom game. But what's the sequence? West Brom, Newcastle away, and then Southampton away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think our schedule is pretty favorable compared to most of our other competitors. I think think Man City schedule is pretty relatively easy too. Can't remember off the top of my head who they're playing, but I think other than Man City, all the other top clubs have a more difficult go of it than we do. Southampton would be the only one that you'd, I think, even be remotely concerned about, and that's going to come on the back of 2 games in a short period for them, which you would think would hurt them more than it'll hurt us. So yeah, I would, I don't know if expect. I would hope we'd get all 9 points out of those 3 games, and I expect a lot of the other top clubs to drop points during that period. Maybe not Man City, but again, without looking at it, it's I'm pretty sure Chelsea, United, Spurs all have a more difficult set of games there. Leicester plays some tough games there, so you'd expect those teams to kind of beat up on each other. And like I said, I think I've said a couple of times, the last couple of times we've done podcasts, I'm interested to see kind of where everybody is when we get to like the middle or the end of January. I think there's going to be a lot of sorting out that happens over the next couple of weeks, and it'll be, it should be a much clearer picture at that point. I've actually today been going through and kind of doing some math and like predictions in my head, and a lot of these results are going to play a big part when these teams play each other over this period, because they're going to be 6-point matches, and again, like middle or end of January could end up making a big difference, the results in some of these matches. So it's going to be fun, but I think we, again, have a relatively easy schedule, and we should be able to pick up 3 points in all of those games.
I think City go to Chelsea, the New Year fixture.
That's right. Yeah.
On the Sunday, and then we play Southampton on the Monday night. So we'll have seen all the other results come in. That's a tricky fixture. I really like Southampton playing nice football. I like what Hasenhüttl was doing there, and Danny Ings was just really unfortunate his time at Liverpool. He's a great little player. I'm really pleased that he's come back from his injuries, and he's a dangerous player. He's scoring goals, but that's a good little team they've got at Southampton. That is a trickier fixture than I'm probably giving it.
So I don't know what the update is, but yesterday Hasenhüttl said that he took a calculated risk in playing Ings in that game, and he went off in the first half.
Oh, did he?
He did, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Don't know if it's a knee or a hamstring. So
yeah, it's a shame of the injuries with him. He's one of those players that its injuries have really hampered his career. He could have had a good career at Liverpool if he hadn't had the injuries.
Yeah. By the time he got fit, Liverpool's level had just gone from there to, he just wasn't good enough to get in the team. By the time he was fit again, Klopp had made us just elevated to that level. But he worked. He's really well thought of at the club. He worked so hard, and it's just really unlucky to get 2 really bad injuries in a row like that. But they're a dangerous team when he's playing Southampton. So that is a tougher fixture. But we got, I would hope we're still top at that point.
Mm-hmm.
We should win the game against West Brom and against Newcastle. Technically, we'd be 4 or more points ahead going into that round of fixtures. So, it would be nice to finish that off, and then we've got the availability. I think by that point, as we get into January, as well as having the transfer window, we've got players coming back. Hoping to see Thiago on the pitch again at some point, but even having Milner back for a bit of rotation. I'm not quite sure how long Jota will be out, but again, to be able to spare the front 3 and rotate them a bit, him coming back will be quite timely. So if he's back at some point towards the end of January, maybe then, and we're still 4 points up, I just think that's another boost for us. It's interesting period. I think the rest of the teams, the problem is that nobody else is consistent. That's going to be their downfall, is that nobody can put a consistent run into challenges.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point about Jota. That's one of the reasons I was excited about Minamino scoring, because we're going to need him over the next month.
Yeah, having him and Naby putting that shift yesterday was really promising, because they are needed.
And I just to your point earlier, I hope we bring in someone in defense, a center back in January, but maybe not as like a long-term starter, maybe somebody just to add a little bit of depth there. And then maybe we look to add a starter in the summer. That would be my guess anyway at what we might do. But you know, I just, yeah, I do worry about the depth there because, you know, Fabinho's been amazing, but you know, if he gets hurt, we're in a bad spot. One of the things that I saw after yesterday's game was Fabinho, I guess, has started 13 games at center back for us now, and he's only conceded 2 goals, and one was to a questionable penalty, and the other one was Son's goal the other day.
Yeah.
Which is pretty impressive for someone that doesn't play center back. So.
Yeah, he's been excellent, especially marshalling some of the younger players he's had alongside of him. So
yeah,
you can see his line. You know, his experience at right back has helped him, but I think it's just a learning curve. The more he's getting used to playing there, the better his performance has become. Just getting used to having to hold that line that he wouldn't have had to do in midfield. But the panic isn't there. When Gomez went down injured, you're like, who are we signing? And please, could you have the deal? You know, Michael Edwards, have the deal wrapped up so that you're announcing it as we wake up on New Year's Day and in his shirt, you know, ready to play. But the panic isn't quite there. And I think, you know, what you say about having somebody temporary, you know, there isn't the need to go out and splash a huge amount of cash. I think we need numbers, and we need to be lucky. You know, if Matip doesn't stay fit, or if Fabinho picks up an injury, then we've got some problems.
Mm-hmm.
But we've had enough bad luck this year. You know, we think they might catch a break and them stay fit.
So there's probably a lot to say about how many midfielders could play in the centre of defence, because I think we'll end up there even if we do sign someone.
Yeah.
But I'm conscious of the time. I think we're probably we should wrap it up for today. The Reds are on a roll. Exciting times as always to be a Liverpool fan, particularly after the week that we've just had. Wes, thanks so much for joining us today, sharing your story and helping us do a little bit of analysis on how things are progressing for the boys. And I can't believe that Bobby Firmino's 2 goals didn't get more of a reference, but that's probably for another time. That maybe says kind of how complete the performance was.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks very much, guys. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I look forward to seeing you over in Delaware as soon as it's safe to do so, and I can get over there.
Definitely. Yeah.
Wonderful.
First round's on me.
Thanks.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks.